We all grew up playing the R-types, the 1943s, the Gradius games, and even if you haven't played any of those games, such classics are sure to be recognized even by gamers outside of that genre. So with this video, I want to shed a little bit of light on some of the less popular shooters out there. Also, a quick note before I start the video, I will not be listing the games in any sort of chronological order or based on favorites. So let's start the video off with the Thundercross series. It included only 2 games. Part 1 was released in 1988 and was developed and published by Konami. Now, I first saw this game at an arcade joint inside a mall, and it's a shame that it never got released on any console until it was part of the Oretachi ga Sensoku compilation that was released in Japan only. Thundercross consists of 7 levels. You had your standard options and 3 different laser weapons at your disposal. It was also 2-player co-op. I remember playing this one every time I went to the arcade, but I never got further than level 3. Part 2 was released in 1991 in the arcades as well. This one was also never ported to any console of that time, and as of the making of this video, it is currently available on the PlayStation and Nintendo stores. This title also had 7 total levels, but the parallax scrolling here is vastly improved, as well as the soundtrack. The weapons and icons return mostly similar to Part 1, and it feels a bit easier than the first. The graphics also are a bit sharper and cleaner overall. Give these games a try. They are a great throwback to the old days when Konami knew how to make good space shooters. Heck, when they made video games, period. German developer HughCast.net released DUX, and I say DUX because I have no idea of how to pronounce it. Is it Dux? Is it Dukes? Anyway, it was released in 2009 for the Dreamcast, and this title is a nice tribute to R-Type. The graphics here may not be the best out of the bunch I go over for this video, with the approach here using pastel-like colors with hard outlines, making it seem like it all kind of blends into one another. The absence of details on everything, including your ship, starts to wear on your eyesight after a bit. At least it does for me as I played it. I found the game also to be a bit heavy on the colors. Very vibrant. There are different lasers here to collect, and you can use your option to absorb pretty much anything that the enemies throw at you. It behaves just like you would expect after playing R-Type. The game is very smooth and requires pattern recognition above just mindless button smashing and movement. The music here, it's alright, nothing to go crazy for, but for the most part it's soft paced with low booming bass to accompany the beats from time to time. The boss music here feels like Euro club music though, so if you're into that, This one is not a bad game at all, but with just a little more polish, I think it could have been much better. The Genesis was the console of choice when you wanted fast action-paced and energetic space shooters. But once in a while, the Super NES surprises all with a decent shooter. Super Dimension Fortress Macross Scrambled Valkyrie was released in 1993, and it was developed by Winkysoft and released only for the Super Famicom. For those out there that might not be familiar with this series, it is basically Robotech for us here in the West. You get to choose from 3 characters, all from the anime show, and each ship has its own specific weapons. You can power up each weapon 3 times for added firepower. Each time you take a hit, you lose power and your weapon level decreases by 1. Your ship has 3 transformations, each with specific weapons as well. Your speed decreases as you go towards full transformation. Choose wisely. You only have 1 life, so if you lose, you have to start the level all over again. The graphics here are what you would expect from a Super Famicom game. Very colorful with nice detailed parallax scrolling. Sometimes it's a little too much as you try to take it in all at once while not getting hammered by enemy fire. Now speaking of enemies, if you stop shooting for a bit, your ship develops an aura that allows you to get close to an enemy and bring him over to your side. Now he attacks your enemies, and from what I can tell, he doesn't take damage and will only go away if you switch to another enemy option. The music is fast-paced and has that authentic Super NES reverb sound to it. It has 7 stages total, but you know, hell, if I played anything else other than stage 1, this game is brutal. I can't beat the first boss. I had to let the game's demo play out to even see what the other levels look like. Yeah, that's how difficult this game is. Anyone out there that wants a good challenge on their shooter, you know what? Try this game right here. It will kick your ass. Isometric shooters are not plentiful, but when they do get released, they are usually fun. I remember seeing Viewpoint on the MVS back in the 90s and was so impressed with it that I even bought the upgraded version for the PlayStation 1. So to my surprise, as I researched for this video, I read up on this title right here, The Reap. It was released in 1997 and it was developed by House Marquee. If that name sounds familiar, it's because they also released Stardust on the PC and then years later ported it to the PS3. The game is like taking a step back into the 90s. The visuals, the presentation, the blurry and highly pixelated graphics with that techno club sound, plus that very awful color palette. Ugh, so many nasty greens and browns that all blend into one another. I do not like that. I was trying to get it to run at a higher resolution, but I couldn't figure it out. Plus, it runs extremely fast even after I messed around with the settings. DOSBox didn't help either since I can't run this game on DOS mode. The game consists of only 4 levels, but they are very long levels, broken into sections. Your ship automatically opens some kind of a warp hole and just vanishes, letting you know the section of the level is completed. And for a second, I thought my game crashed or something. What was going on? My ship just disappeared. But no, it was just the section ending. The bosses here are huge and require a ton of hits. And if it seems like I'm taking no damage, you would be right. I had to turn on a cheat so I can just play long enough to play this game for footage. It is brutally hard, even on easy mode, and the fact that it runs real fast on my computer didn't help out either. I was also playing on my keyboard since the game would not recognize my Logitech 310 gamepad. You know what? Damn you developers for not looking into the future and anticipating Windows 10 and the Logitech F310 gamepad. Fail. Isometric shooters require no thinking skills. It's shoot, dodge, repeat. The visuals here are a mess. You got this mashup of brown and green palettes on every level, and that is a huge letdown for me. Good thing is that the game is fun in short spurts. You got 4 weapons to choose from, and each can be upgraded 3 times before they max out. I also love the way you get to maul down enemy foot soldiers by the hundreds. It is carnage out here. The game even identifies some of them by name. If you're looking for a mindless shooter with a kick-ass soundtrack and it's just oozing with that 90s vibe, look no further than The Reap. If Reap was your reason to turn your brain off, Dragon Strike is a quick reminder that you have to turn it on again. This game was developed by Westwood Studios and the NES port released in 1992. The Amiga and the X68000 ports are different from the NES one as they are flight simulator type games. The NES port, on the other hand, is a top-down, open-ended shooter. There are 14 levels total. You get to choose from 3 dragons with different attributes, yet when I played with them, they all control and pretty much feel the same except for their fire abilities. The dragons fly in 2 altitudes, and this is where the game gets a little bit tricky. Depending on what altitude you are allows you to engage your targets properly. Aside from enemies, you also have to deal with the level design, and some things will stand taller, forcing you to maneuver around things or change altitude. You got free range to move about and choose what targets to attack first. Once you complete the mission's objective, you can then fly to the top of the level to proceed to the boss encounter. They also require you to use altitude adjustment to defeat them. There are icons scattered about the levels as well, and some will regain health and some will grant invincibility for a short amount of time. Defeating dragons that are flying about will also drop icons to help you along the way. I do like the open style aspect to it. It is different from the traditional vertical scrolling shooters. There is also a password system that will help you pick up the action from where you left off. Very helpful, plus the passwords given, they are not long and complicated. Don't expect fancy complicated graphics on this one. If you can get past the subpar visuals, you will find a rather fun shooter set in the world of Dungeons and Dragons. Racing developed Di Mahu back in 2000. This arcade title was published by Capcom and falls under the bullet hell genre that got wildly popular toward the late 90s and the early 2000s. 4 characters round out the selection with 6 stages total. Each one of them has a specific ship and weapons with special attacks that go with their type of class. Oh snap, is that Miyamoto? That's the guy who created Donkey Kong. It's awesome. I didn't know he was a lion. This is one of those games that is stuck in the arcade since it never got any port at all, anywhere, and that's a shame. This shooter has some of the best sprite artwork I have seen in a while, with extremely vibrant but full range of colors to complement that art style. The action and the pacing is frantic, with so much items, enemies, and shots on the screen at one time that I found it so easy to lose my place among the mayhem. This right here is insanity. The stages are well detailed and the enemy bosses are huge and very well animated. Di Mahu does not disappoint in any department. If you can somehow get your hands on this crazy shooter, you are gonna have one hell of a time with it. Staying on developer racing, Di Mahu was not the first shooter game that they made. That title goes to Sorcerer Striker, which was released in 1993 and went on to get ports on the X68000 and the FM Towns. And I am not making up that name, it is the name of an actual console, and if you think that name is stupid, someone in that company doubled down and named their next console the FM Towns Marty.
Whoa, this is heavy.
Sorcerer Striker is similar to Di Mahu in that they both seem to take place in a fantasy world setting. Here you also have 4 characters to choose from and oh snap! There's Miyamoto again! Each character has his or her own special ship and weaponry as well as special bombs. You can upgrade your weapons by picking up books of different colors which give different types of lasers. Once again, the enemies here are insane, with the bosses being very detailed and colorful. Take the first boss here, a dragon, with the body of an advanced spaceship. What? You know, that's what I love to see, that over-the-top stuff like this. I love it. The stages are full of small little details just like in Di Mahu. Just look at this little old guy right here, running for cover. Run dude, run! I also love how this character here doesn't climb onto an existing ship. He freaking summons a ship. Damn, I love that. The people on land will also cheer you on as you fly by. It's little details like this that I love. So cool. The difficulty on this one is a tad lower than Di Mahu, but it's still no walk in the park. This game kicked my ass for the entire time I played it. This one and Di Mahu are part of a 3-part series titled Mahou Daisakusen, and I probably just butchered that name to hell. I will cover the last game of the series in a future video, but I do believe that this game is available on the PlayStation Store. It is part of the M2 Shot Rigger compilation, but from what I can tell, it's not on the US PlayStation Store. Some say the Japanese store has it available. Black Heart was developed by UPL and released to the arcades in 1991. It has a total of 8 stages and there are no multiple characters to choose from here. You're stuck with this guy right here who is out to save a princess who has been kidnapped by some evil guy. Luckily, he has access to a dragon that shoots projectiles and breathes fire just as long as your energy meter here at the bottom is filled up. There are no power-ups for your weapons, and you only get access to these little fairies who fly right next to you. It's like this game's version of Gradius options, basically. You can only get 3 though. There is another fairy usually found locked inside a small cage that replenishes your dragon's fire meter. The game starts off rather slow and easy before the difficulty ramps up a bit later on. It doesn't surprise me though, since this is what arcade games are supposed to do. But the addition of several different weapons would have made this game a bit more interesting at least. The music, it's okay. It does its job and goes well with the theme here. The game never got a console release, but it is now available on the PlayStation and Nintendo shops. The game leans heavily towards very cartoony-like graphics, so if you're into that, try out Blackheart. Now here's an NES title that we never got here in the States. Over Horizon was released in Japan in 1991 and in Germany in 1992. If there ever was a game on the NES that I lament not getting to play back then, this is the one right here. The game consists of 6 stages with your ship able to shoot front and back. You can also upgrade your weapons to different lasers and collect up to 2 options. The game also has a built-in edit mode where you can customize weapons and how your options are positioned when picked up. The game even has a test mode to try out your edits. How freaking awesome is that? What I really like about this one is the stages, and even though I didn't get far, from what I saw, made for some great level design. I know I sound a bit silly getting excited over a game that is over 30 years old, but great level design and gameplay never gets old, and this one has it in spades. The level 2 boss in particular I found to be very well designed, and it's a unique battle. The third stage has you moving ice blocks to slowly proceed into the level. This isn't a game where you can just plow through, it requires careful strategy, and I love that. You also have some graphics that are in the foreground, which is neat to see but can be very confusing at times. Luckily, the game makes this apparent on the first stage, which gets you mentally prepared for the rest of the stages using this technique. Your controls are responsive here, so most of the time when I did die, I didn't feel that the game was unfair, but rather my reflexes were just not good enough. The music is nothing mind-blowing, but it fits well with the space shooter theme. I do like the boss music though. I need to revisit this one again in the future and try and beat it. I was very surprised and pleased with this game. I know it's silly to throw around the word hidden gem nowadays, but I think this one qualifies. Cross Multiply is a rather obscure IRAM shooter. It was designed for the M72 IRAM board, which is the same one that was used by R-Type. It was released in 1989 on the arcades and years later on the PlayStation 1 and Sega Saturn. You guide a miniature spaceship inside a human body that has been invaded by alien organisms. And if you've ever played Apodox on the NES, this is what I feel the game would look like if it had an arcade version. The option system here, it's unique. They are 2 metallic extensions tied to your ship and they move about from back to the front as you maneuver around. The trick here is to learn how to move the flailing options around to soak up enemy fire. It's not easy and takes a bit of practice, but if you manage to get the timing down right, you could get far in the game. Unfortunately, I never got the timing down for the most part, and I got as far as stage 3 the first time around, but I didn't capture sound on the video, so I had to start a new playthrough, and now I can't get past the second level boss, which is a huge biological machine that slowly flies about the level, and you have to maneuver your ship to the right spot to avoid getting killed. This level is clearly a nod to stage 3 in R-Type. There are 3 types of lasers of which you can upgrade them a few times for the best firepower possible. I recommend the red one since it feels it does the most damage, but I could be wrong. The title has 6 levels in total, but like hell if I can get past the second stage now. This game is not easy at all, but do play it if you can. It is currently available on the PlayStation Store. Before I end this video, I gotta give a shout out to In the Hunt, also by IRAM. I was playing all these games and I just happened to come across this one and started playing it and I could not stop. I know this game is not such an obscure title, but oh man, does it kick ass. The amount of work that went into placing so much detail into not only the enemies, but level designs and background objects, it's still jaw-dropping in 2023. This right here is Metal Slug Underwater, plain and simple. Not surprising considering that many of the IRAM team that worked on this title and others such as Undercover Cops went on to create Nazca Corporation, which would go on to create the beloved Metal Slug series. To think that this game right here is now 30 years old and it still looks and plays great is a testament to the geniuses behind its development. If for some reason you have never played this game, you owe it to yourself as a gamer, as a human being, as a child of the cosmos, to at least try it out. That's my way of saying go play it. Anyway, that brings this video of obscure shooters to a close. To all those who stuck to the end, thank you for watching. Now, what obscure shooters have you played that you feel would make a great addition to a video like this one? Share your thoughts below. Also remember that I have a Reddit forum where you can share or add more to the conversation there as well. Until next video, keep watching, keep gaming, and as always, take care of yourselves.